What up, sports fans? Waxon Wednesday. Jake Waxman, Tyler Lava, let two guys talk sports. Let's rock and roll. All right, just going to cut right to the chase. This Waxon Wednesday, all focused on the NCAA tournament. We're going to start with some thoughts that I have for the round of 32. If there is a lesson to be learned from this year's round of 32, it is there was plenty of madness, and there were plenty of upsets to behold. We as college basketball fans were just looking in the wrong places for these upsets. And I'm just going to say this right now. This NCAA tournament, it's already surpassed the last one. And for one simple reason too, because not all the number one seeds are going to be in this year's Final Four in Indianapolis. So to start things off, if we were looking for like the 12s, the 13s, and lower seeds to make those kind of upsets, but we needed to look higher. We needed to be looking at, the 9s, the 10s, and, the 11s for that matter. We needed to be looking at those seed lines rather than like the 12, 13s, and 14s. Simple as that. And we got quite a bit of those, okay? How about Texas? First of all, I'm going to say this. How about Texas? From first four in Dayton to the Sweet 16. Great win for them over Gonzaga, and wow, Cam Heide, former Purdue Boilermaker, with the shot that pretty much ensured that Texas would be going on to the Sweet 16 and would defeat Gonzaga. It's a huge win for Texas and a confidence booster for that team. They'll play in San Jose against who else but Cam Heide's former team, the Purdue Boilermakers, of course. So that's another big story. So that's one of the bigger upsets that have happened this weekend. Texas pretty much is upsetting everyone in their path, but number 11 Texas over number 3 Gonzaga. And most of the upsets, you could say, have also taken place in the second round as opposed to the first round. We only had really one major upset at 12 over 5, High Point over Wisconsin. And how about this? High Point almost picked off at Arkansas. Just ran out of steam in the end. Well, here's some of the other big storylines coming from the round of 32. Starting with, holy crap, the Florida Gators. Oh my goodness. I mentioned not all the number one seeds will be in the Sweet 16, and not all the number one seeds will be in the Final Four. Actually, I mentioned not all the number one seeds will be in the Final Four. Well, they're definitely not going to be the Sweet 16. The thing is, Florida, they are the first number one seed to go. I can't say I had that in my bracket. Let me show you what my bracket looks like real quick. Look at that. This is a mess. It's just about busted. I had Florida in the national championship. What do they do? Well, I'm just gonna put it simply. Against a hungry Iowa team, the Florida Gators, they effed around and found out. And the thing about Florida is last year's Florida Gators team, which won the national championship, they were good, don't get me wrong, but they were also one of the luckiest national championship winning teams I'd ever seen, because 2 times in last year's NCAA tournament, Florida should have been going home. They should have lost to Texas Tech and should have been falling short of the Final Four, but Texas Tech couldn't find a way to finish it off. And the same thing in the national championship. They both against Texas Tech and then in the national championship against Houston. In both games, they effed around and found out the easy way. They got lucky because neither of those two teams could finish against them. And luckily, that Florida team was really, really good, but they messed around a lot. And you know what? The Florida Gators and you know what? Todd Golden is a great coach, all right? Nothing bad to say about him. But this Florida Gators team, they did not learn anything from their national championship last year. They didn't learn in terms of not messing around and finding out the hard way. They didn't learn. And once again, NCAA tournament time, they effed around and found out once more. And this time that came back and bit them in the butt. And they messed around all game against Iowa. And credit to Iowa real quick because they played hard, they wanted it. They made all the right plays when it mattered. Credit to them. They deserve to go to the Sweet 16. Not taking anything away from Iowa. But Florida, man, they were messing around way too much against Iowa. And then They finally came back, took the lead, went on a run, and what do? They continued to F around and find out. And guess what? Iowa makes a game-winning shot, a game-winning three against them, and I'm happy for the guy, for Iowa, number 7, who made the game-winning shot, because from what I understand, he lost his mother not too long ago, so I'm happy for him. You know, point to that sky, man. Your mother's proud of you. And he made the game-winning shot, and then Florida, they had 4 seconds to come up with something, and they don't even get a shot off. The Gators, man, hey, you know, I'm sure Todd Golden's going to stress this in the offseason. He's going to talk to his team and say, hey, when it comes to these big-time NCAA tournament teams, we have got to stop effing around and finding out. We got to stop messing around and just focus on playing our game. Shot selection, defense. You know, the Gators, they had poor shot selection in those final minutes. And on top of that, they were playing way too aggressively on defense. I think they were playing full court press on defense. And I did not like that because it actually benefited Iowa. It allowed Iowa to figure out what they needed to do and get their shot selection well set up. So, you know what? The Gators have no one to blame but themselves. I mean, they could have avoided the fate that a lot of NCAA tournament teams go through. A round of 32 upset following the last season when they won the national championship. Florida could have avoided this fate. But you know what? I'll say it again. I know a broken record. They effed around. And they found out against a hungry Iowa team. And that Iowa team? Congrats to the Iowa Hawkeyes and Ben McCollum in his first year taking the Iowa Hawkeyes where Fran McCaffrey was never able to get this basketball program, and that is to the Sweet 16. It's Iowa's first trip to the Sweet 16 since I think 1999. So, long time ago. Long time ago. With that being, and how about this? The Iowa Hawkeyes, one of six Big Ten teams in the Sweet 16. So I mentioned Iowa. You've also got Nebraska. Congrats to Nebraska too. They got their first tournament win, and now they got their first Sweet 16 appearance of program history. Fred Hoiberg, what a coach. Then I mentioned Purdue. Purdue with their third straight Sweet 16 appearance. And you got Michigan. You got Michigan State and Illinois. I mean, no one's surprised about Purdue, Michigan State, and Illinois making a Sweet 16 appearance, but you know, Nebraska and Iowa. How about Big Ten? Perhaps the Big Ten was the best conference in college basketball this year. And they'll have more of a chance to prove it because now you got 6 teams still in the race. My gut tells me this is the year the Big Ten ends their title drought. This might be it. I mean, those Big Ten teams, they played well in their games. And then another storyline to follow coming out of the first round, the Duke Blue Devils. All right, they're in the Sweet 16, but they're the only ACC team in the Sweet 16, and I've got some concerns about them. You know, they're banged up, they're injured. They got a guy that they're hopeful will return. I don't remember his name. I needed to look that up before I did this, admittedly, but Purdue has not been at full strength, or not Purdue, but Duke has not been at full strength so far in this tournament, and it shows. But if they can get one of their if they can get up to closer to full strength this upcoming week, and they'll be playing a very good St. John's team, they'll have a better chance of advancing forward. But right now, Duke looks like the next number 1 seed right now that could end up falling short of the Final Four. I mean, great team. I mean, the Boozer brothers, they were balling out. They got frustrated early, especially against TCU, but they got their crap together and they actually played good basketball. I mean, they got their focus in place, and some people will say a call changed the direction of that game in Duke's favor, but it is what it is. And I try not to complain too much about the refs. I do know what call people are talking about, but Duke, if they can get healthy and if they can get their mindset right, they can get rested. They will have a good shot at going to Indianapolis. If not, they might have a short stay in the Sweet 16. We'll find out. All right, shifting gears. Let's check out the regions, shall we? Starting off, I mentioned Duke is the number 1 seed in the East. So Duke, they're taking on They're taking on St. John's in the Sweet 16, and then you got UConn, who defeated UCLA and prevented the Big Ten from having 7 teams in the big in the NCAA Sweet 16, and they're taking on, and UConn of course is taking on MSU. Holy cow! That East region in terms of coaching is stacked. You got John Shire, you got Rick Pitino, John Shire versus Rick Pitino, and then you got Tom Izzo versus Dan Hurley. That in terms of coaching, the East is a gauntlet. Everyone said now. I didn't. I still don't. Well, I still don't believe the East is the most difficult region to come out of. Coaching wise, it's a gauntlet. All right. I still think that the most difficult region right now might be the. I think it's still the West. The Midwest is also pretty difficult too. You just can't underestimate the teams around there. And of course, the South is about as wide open as they get now. Holy cow! So, I still like Duke to come out of this region. But there is a part of me that says there is a good chance if they don't get rested, they don't get healthy, St. John's might knock them out of the tournament. And if not St. John's, either Michigan State or UConn could knock them out. Anyone can come out of the East right now. And I can't overlook Michigan State. They're great defensively. If their offense can stay consistent, they'll have a chance. And UConn is UConn. And I mean, they got Alex Caravan leading the way. And Dan Hurley is Dan Hurley. Simple as that. I had Duke in my bracket coming out of the East. I'll stick with Duke. Okay? I can't go backwards on my picks. See? I always believe that, hey, once you make a bracket, it's set in stone. Simple as that. So, I got to stick with Duke. But there is a chance that I'm probably going to regret picking Duke to come out of the East. Strong chance. We'll see. And then there's the West. You got Arkansas. You got Arizona, you got Purdue, and you got Texas. So Purdue is playing Texas, and Arkansas is playing Arizona. Okay. I'll come back to Purdue in a moment. That'll be my final part of this video. But I tell you what, I think Arkansas can give Arizona some trouble. Arizona, they are great, and they look like a favorite to win the national championship, and I believe they can. And that's another reason why this West region is so difficult, because you got 3 teams that are capable in this region that are capable of getting to the Final Four. 2 of them are capable of winning the national championship. And those the 2 teams I mentioned in the West that I think are capable of winning the Natty are Arizona and Purdue. Arkansas, I think they can beat both Purdue and Arizona and can get to the Final Four. I don't know if they'll be able to win the national championship, but do not overlook Arkansas. They can cause trouble, and I went boldly with this one. I've got Arkansas upsetting Arizona in an upset. Because Arkansas, they're physical, they can make shots, and John Calipari, new lease of life in Fayetteville. I mean, John Calipari looks like a completely different coach in Arkansas. I don't want to say it's Kentucky, but sometimes changing scenery does a lot of good. And he's coaching up these kids in Arkansas really, really well. And in Fayetteville. And right now, they're physical, they're athletic, they can play defense, they can make shots. You know, they could give Arizona some trouble with their physicality. Of course, Arizona also plays kind of that same, a bit of a similar style. So it's a matter of whose physicality is going to, whoever's the more physical team and more willing to go where the other team's not, that's who I think is going to win that game. Purdue and Texas, I'll come back to in a bit. And then there's the Midwest. So, Sweet 16 in the Midwest. You got Michigan playing Alabama. You got Iowa State playing Tennessee. So, to start off, Nate Oates, man, he's got Alabama and yet another Sweet 16. I think this is this is the 4th straight Sweet 16 for Alabama under Nate Oates. There's coaches out there that don't get enough credit, and Nate Oates is one of them. He's a great coach. He's doing great things down there in Tuscaloosa, where they love to play football in Tuscaloosa, but basketball has been reigning supreme as of late there. But they're going to go up against a Michigan team that's very big in their size, physical. They can shoot the 3, can play defense. Alabama is going to have to make shots to be able to beat Michigan. I don't know if they can make enough to beat Michigan. And then, we talk about coaches that do not get enough respect. Rick Barnes of Tennessee. rebuilding year for the Tennessee Volunteers. Younger team. I mean, Kobe Gillespie returns. That's probably their most veteran player. But younger team for Tennessee, and yet, fourth straight year, the Volunteers are in the Sweet 16. Give Rick Barnes the respect he deserves. He deserves more respect. He is arguably college basketball's most underappreciated head basketball coach. Because that guy, under Tennessee under Rick Barnes has become a lot more of a consistent program. And they've been knocking on the door of a Final Four. The last 2 seasons, they were knocking on the door of the Final Four. Just ran into a better team in both Purdue in 2024 and Houston in 2025. I thought they'd have a chance to get back past Houston, but wasn't to be. This year, however, with that team being younger, I don't think this is good. I don't think Tennessee's going to get past the Sweet 16, and if they do, I don't think they're going to get to the Final Four. Because you got a lot of this region is stacked, especially the number 1 and 2 seeds. You got Michigan and you got Iowa State, and Tennessee's got to play Iowa State. Tennessee, they love to play defense, love to play hard. Iowa can take Tennessee's game and pretty much throw it right back at them. Iowa's got a great offense and a great defense. And TJ Olsenberger, great underrated coach as well. With the way Iowa State plays, I think that's going to be too much for this younger Tennessee team. So, I mean, very, very good run for Tennessee, but my gut tells me it comes to an end against a very good Iowa State team. And I think it's going to be Iowa State and Michigan. And Iowa State, I think, is going to give Michigan problems. That's just what I believe. I'm sticking with Iowa State to make the Final Four out of the Midwest. Michigan, I mean, that game could go either way if it's between Iowa State and Michigan, but I think the way Iowa State plays defense, they can basically throw Michigan's game right back at them, and that could be trouble. And then you got the South. So we got 3 Big Ten teams in the South. You got Iowa taking on Nebraska, then you got Illinois taking on Houston. I'll start off. Happy for both Iowa and Nebraska. First Sweet 16 ever for the Cornhuskers, and first Sweet 16 for the Hawkeyes since 1999. It's been a long time coming for both of these two teams. And no matter what they do no matter what happens in this game, both of these two teams should be proud of how far they got. Which is why it just sucks that only one of them is going to advance to the Elite Eight. And they got to play each other. I think this, based on kind of what I've seen in the regulars, Ben Sturtz is a great point guard for Iowa, and they can make it close with Nebraska, but I think Nebraska, and you got Fred Hoiberg, who's done an amazing job. I think Nebraska's going to be just a little too much for Iowa in this game. I think Nebraska's going to get their first Elite Eight appearance. And then, Houston and Illinois. Okay, Illinois, I should have known better. I had them going to the round of 32. I thought about picking them to go to the Sweet 16 because they did get a favorable draw. However, I should have known better. Okay, I picked them to go to the round of 32. I probably should have picked them to go to the Sweet 16 at the very least. This Illinois team, they're playing great, especially offensively. I think Houston is going to challenge them defensively, though. You got a very veteran team, and then led by Calvin Sampson. But another coaching battle: Calvin Sampson versus Brad Underwood. Going to be a chess match, so whichever coach outsmarts the other, that could decide who moves on. In this case, I think I like Houston more than I like Illinois, but it could go either way. Illinois played good enough basketball to advance to another Elite Eight. But this Houston team, they're experienced. So out of this region, okay, this is really tough. But you know what? I am just gonna say this. The team that I picked to come out of the South, they pretty much bombed. As I said, after round and found out. So Florida's out. So who do I think's coming out of this region now that Florida's out? I'm feeling bold. Holy crap, am I feeling bold? I'm thinking Nebraska. I think Nebraska, not only can they advance to their first Elite Eight, whether it's Houston or Illinois, they can win. They're believing. I think they're peaking at just the right time. I think Nebraska could get to their first Final Four, which would be fitting. The year that the NCAA tournament, they get their first tournament win. How fitting would it be? They get their first Final Four in that same tournament. Got a feeling about Nebraska, but we'll find out. So I'm going now with Florida out. I think I'm rolling with Nebraska to pull a massive surprise and go to their first Final Four ever in program history. Why not, right? And finally, now back to the West. I was about to talk about Purdue. I wanted to save this for last. So third and final subject focuses on Purdue. They're playing the number 11 seed Texas Longhorns, who have caught a lot of people by surprise. Let me just tell you something. Folks, let me just tell you this. I still believe Purdue can win the national championship. I really do believe I can. I believe they can get past Texas, and whether it's Arkansas or Arizona, I believe that Purdue can win against either one of those two, and can make the journey to Indianapolis for the Final Four. I still got Purdue coming out of the West. No doubt about it, they're playing good basketball, but there are things that Purdue need. But if Purdue is going to make the Final Four in Indianapolis and give themselves a shot to win a national championship, some things have got to change. First and foremost, Braden Smith had a rough game against Miami. Miami did a great job defending him, so give Miami credit there. But Braden Smith looked uncomfortable in that game. That was a rough game for Braden Smith. Didn't shoot the ball all that well and turned the ball over a lot. Thankfully, Braden Smith, he's very good about bouncing back, and I have faith that he's going to bounce back. But if this Purdue team is going to make a run to the national championship, they cannot afford for Braden Smith to have another bad game. Braden Smith needs to be on from this point on. He needs to be on his A game. He needs to be hitting shots, but he's got to take care of the ball and not turn it over. Fletcher Loyer and Trey Kaufman-Renn, they played well enough against Miami to help lift Purdue. That was not the best game for Purdue in this tournament. They turned the ball over a lot. Amongst other things, Braden Smith did not have his best game, and yet Purdue beat Miami by 10. But Purdue's going to need a lot more from Braden Smith if they're going to make a run to Indianapolis in the national championship. So Fletcher Loyer played really well in that game, and same with Trey Kaufman-Renn. Need more from Oscar Clough, too. Also, if Purdue is gonna continue to make this run, rebounding needs to be better. Gotta outwork your opponent off the glass. Miami outworked Purdue on the glass in that game. You think about all the statistics that were against Purdue in that game, especially rebounding. Yet Purdue found a way to win by 10 despite being out rebounded in that game. I think 30-23. Both ends too. So rebounding's got to be better. Of course, defense has improved a lot, but this Purdue team can always use more on defense. So those things need to happen, and Purdue needs to be on their guard and not underestimate this Texas team, which is hungry. Bit of a hope, Cam Heide. He's hit some big-time shots, so I'm happy for him, and I'm happy he's gotten this far. It'll be good to see him again on Thursday. Short rest for Purdue. So, got to be on your game. Work on the things you need to work on in practice, but come prepared to play the full 40 with purpose, focus, and hunger. This Purdue team needs to be on their game. Braden Smith needs to be on his game all the way through going forward if Purdue's going to win a national championship. Let alone make it to Indianapolis for the Final Four. If Purdue wants to go to the Final Four and make it to the national championship game and win the national championship game, we need Braden Smith on the rest of the way. His A++ game, rebounding, and as much we can get out of the defense as possible. And we just need everybody to be on their game. And we need Fletcher Loyer to stay hot. Same with Trey Kaufman-Renn. We need guys like, I forgot what his name, like Oscar Clough to be on his game as well. And you know what? Purdue needs to come into this game against Texas healthy. A little worried about CJ Cox. He had a hyperextension against Miami. Thankfully, he was okay, was able to walk under his own power, but I'm hopeful that he'll be good to go for Texas on Thursday. He's not going to have a lot of time to heal that leg. So, hopefully CJ Cox is healthy and ready to go. Might not be 100%, but if he's ready to go, then keep him in the starting lineup. But a lot for Purdue to work on. Whether they play Arkansas or Arizona, they got to do those things. Like I mentioned, I've got Purdue and Arkansas in the Elite Eight, but there's a good chance that it could be. I mean, Texas could upset Purdue if Purdue does not play their sharpest game. No question about that. I like Purdue's experience though in this game, but Purdue's got to be on guard. But I like them to beat Texas though, due to their experience. And then, presuming they go to their third Elite Eight under Matt Painter, they got to be well prepared to play a difficult game, whether it's against Arkansas or Arizona. And presuming they make it to the Elite Eight, there is a good chance that they'll probably play Arizona in the Elite Eight. And Arizona can cause Purdue problems. Size, athleticism, shooting ability. Whatever you want in a basketball team, you name it, Arizona's got it all. That's a great team. And if Arizona goes to the Final Four and comes out of the West to Indianapolis, I think they'll win it all if they make it past Purdue. I think that if it's Arizona versus Purdue, the winner of that game is probably going to win the national championship because both of those teams are capable. Purdue is capable. If Purdue is on their game, they are capable of beating Arizona because they showed me in the Michigan game they could take the fight to a team that's athletic and shoots the ball and is big in size. Purdue will need to if Purdue ends up playing Arizona in the Elite Eight, they will everything that they had in that Michigan game or the Big Ten tournament final. They will need to have that kind of game against Arizona as well. And I think Arizona's a better team than Michigan. No easy matchups line up ahead. But with that said, I still believe in this Purdue team, and I still believe they're going to come out of the West. I still have Purdue coming out of the West region and making the Final Four in Indianapolis, and still got them winning the national championship. We'll see how right I am, though. All right, on to this day in sports history. On this day, the 25th of March, 1972, the 34th NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. UCLA beats Florida State 81-76. Sixth straight title for the Bruins, and future Hall of Famer center Bill Walton becomes the tournament's most outstanding player. All right, sports fans, that's all I got for this week's Waxon Wednesday. See you guys on Friday with my man Tyler Lavalette for another Friday Roundtable. We'll have plenty to discuss. I mean, Purdue will played on Thursday. We'll find out if they made it to another Elite Eight or not. And with that being said, thank you so much for all the support. Me and Tyler greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching this week's Wax on Wednesday. This is Jake Waxman from Two Guys Talk Sports signing off.